One night and bang. Oh, welcome to the Dog Central Show. I am Graham Coffey. That is my good friend Josh Hancher, aka Dog Stats. It is a Thursday evening, and we are here in mid-August. The season is creeping ever closer by the day. 2 weekends from now, there's going to be live college football on your television. It's kind of exciting and scary all at the same time. But in order to get ready for what's coming down the pipe, we are here today to do some Big 12 win totals and talk about a couple future SEC programs while doing that in Texas and Oklahoma. Before we jump in, obviously Georgia Fall Camp has been rolling along. This show is named Dog Central. I know a lot of you guys tune in because you are Georgia fans, so we don't want to leave you dangling out there. We're in that part of the preseason where we see a bunch of UGA staff members meet with the media for the only time of the year, at least the only time that the program makes them available. The college football playoff and the bowls make them have to speak when Georgia gets to that point. But yeah, always interesting to see these guys, I feel like, on the podium because we don't really know them otherwise. But our old friend Mike Bobo was in today on the podium in front of the press. Josh, I'm curious, like, there's been a lot of angst around the return of Mike Bobo. What are your personal thoughts? What was your initial reaction to the hire? I don't think we ever talked to you about it.
It was kind of set in motion when he came on board as an analyst. We all know how far and how close ties that Kirby and Bobo have together, played on the same team. And so it was inevitable. So I was not even remotely surprised, didn't get worked up. Love the fact that he was brought in and, got to work with Monken. I mean, and I think you reported several times how active he was in the coaching, in the offensive coaching room and setting up plays, scripting plays and stuff like that. He's, and I've, Twitter, had a lot of good discussions on Twitter when Monken left for Baltimore and, he put up points and he never had an offensive line that was really notable at all. I mean, he had some good players for sure, but nothing like the talent he has in the O-line and the skill position players. Certainly he had some good running backs back in the day, but I mean, he was top 3 or 4 in scoring in the SEC just about every year he was here calling plays, certainly. And nationally, he was, had some huge scoring years nationally, but the defense just was nothing. So nothing like it is now. It's not to say it's nothing, but so I think I like the Kirby's got a plan. He knew that Monken was not going to be there for a long time, and he brought the guy in he wanted. So, and we all know that Bobo's still got good ties in the Southeast, coaching with high school coaches and bringing in players. So it was inevitable and logical. That's not to say that I think it's a slam dunk for sure going to lead the top 3 in offense every year, but I would be surprised if he's not carrying that 49-50% success rate on offense and moving the ball. And I think he's got the game has changed quite a bit since he was calling plays at Georgia. I think you reported and expect some more true RPO type plays and stuff. So it's just the same thing. It's getting your playmakers the ball in space, and how maybe a little different, but I don't expect much fall off whatsoever. So I also don't expect if you call it a tight end screen now, it's a little different than, when he was down at the 10-yard line, he had Todd Gurley in the background in South Carolina, but I digress. So,
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like, it's interesting because the body of work with Bobo was so large when he was there the first time, right? His first game calling plays was the 2006 Peach Bowl against Virginia Tech, when Virginia Tech was like a legit, perennial top 10, top 15 program. And then he was there all the way through up until 2014. Like, that's parts of 9 seasons that he called plays in. And anytime I feel like a fan base has a relationship that long with not just a coach, but in particular a play caller, there's definitely going to be, there's going to be those performances that people don't like. Like the 2021 SEC championship game gets kind of forgotten now amongst Georgia people because UGA went on and beat Alabama a month later for the national title in Indianapolis. But like, I mean, I was always under the opinion that like Monken called a bad game that day. Like that team with the personnel it had, with Stetson Bennett where he was at that point in his development as a quarterback, should not have been throwing the ball 47 times, and they did. And I think like that went against everything they had done all year, and you see that with all the good OCs. I mean, like Sarkisian is widely regarded as one of the best offensive coordinators or offensive designers in the sport, but like, I talked to some Texas media folks at SEC Media Days who talked about like games that they felt like he kind of blew for them last year by not staying patient and sticking with the game plan. So there's always going to be stuff, right? I think the thing that's interesting about Bobo now is just like, man, it's been almost a decade, right? And I think about like, where was I, 9 years ago in my life and in my career? And it's a totally different place than I am now. And, there's a lot of different things that I might have done or lived by at that point that I don't in this day and age, or, different business philosophies that I may or may not have. And point being in all that is I think that Bobo, in all this, we talk about coaches, and I think sometimes we forget as just, as the college football commentariat as a whole, that like these are human beings, and they evolve and they change and they mature and they go through different phases and they learn along the way. And we talk about player development all the time in college football, but we don't probably talk enough about coach development. And one of the things that stood out to me from Bobo's comments was just him talking about where he was when he took that Georgia job to be an analyst last year, and talking about how he had opportunities in other places, and he decided to come to Athens because he wanted to work under Todd Monken. He wanted to learn how that like Saban coaching tree practices. They've always been famous and well regarded for that. And just, it was interesting to see a coach, I think, like speak that honestly, or, with that much humility about, like I was an SEC play caller for the better part of a decade. I was a head coach, and, he did have some very good offenses at Colorado State, especially when he first got there. But like, there was also things that I could learn, and I tried to do that. And I thought that was kind of like cool to see, honestly.
Yeah, I dropped in one of the things I tweeted out. I actually, it says it was still talking about him as an analyst, so Monken was still on the staff. But yeah, yards per play under Bobo's OC: 7th, 3rd, 5th, 4th, 6th, 1st, 5th, 1st. So he knows how to move the ball, and I think I don't know. I was the right hire. In my opinion, I'm not even worried about it. And Kirby we trust, and he had a plan, and he knew this was going to happen, and I think he's got the guy there. And I get it. It looks like the old boys club get back together with Muschamp and Bobo, but shit, man,
going out to see Pylon at the theater tonight.
I'm all about it. But so yeah, I'm excited, and I hope he does well. I certainly had my frustrations with him. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I was, always, a believer in Bobo back then. But I think a lot of that was my frustration with Mark Richt and sort of the complacency to not get us over the top. So, but that's a bygone era, man. We're back-to-back champions, and I'm looking forward. It's looking straight ahead.
Absolutely, as you should be, and I think as everybody else is as well. And I think at the end of the day, like this is still a complementary sport, right? And you look at where a lot of those defenses that he had on the other side from him ranked uh, throughout the kind of 2010s, 20 teens, late 2000s. And it just wasn't comparable really to what Georgia has today. And even, Bobo at the podium today talked about probably the biggest difference between his first time in Athens and being back is like how well recruited this roster is and the development that happens all the way down first, second, third string. Last thing on Bobo before we kind of move on here, but I don't know if you caught there was a comment there was kind of a question asked to him about like, hey, we know you're the new OC, but with you guys losing the 6'8", 280-pound tight end and losing a quarterback who was one of the more elusive quarterbacks probably in college football last year in terms of like his quickness and his ability to avoid the rush. Wouldn't this offense have changed anyways? Right. Like, and I think that's one thing that I'm kind of interested to watch is going into September and realizing that we probably won't see very much of this playbook until at least the South Carolina game, if not further on down the road. I would just caution everybody to like make any big conclusions early on about how, Bobo's changed the offense, because I think with the personnel that left, like this offense was going to have to change no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like it's silly to sit there and expect to use the same plays with the same personnel and the same script and the same concepts and stuff. And if you do that, coaches watch tape. They're gonna figure out a way to beat you. And yeah, I expect any coach, any OC, whether he's first year or 10th year, to be adding wrinkles and adjusting the plays to the personnel he has. So,
on that note, you know who never adds wrinkles, Josh? Home Field Apparel.
Oh, nice. That's a professional transition right there.
Thank you. Home Field Apparel sponsors this show. They sponsor everything we do over on dogcentral.com. They are very, very good to us, and we want to be good to them in return. They make the best vintage collegiate apparel that you are going to find anywhere, whether you're a Georgia fan or a fan of any other of over 100 college programs. You can find something that you're going to like at homefieldapparel.com. When you get there, make sure you use code DogCentral23. You can get 20% off of your first order from Home Field. I am wearing one of their cozy, comfy, soft shirts right now. I have a closet full of them. They make great sweatshirts. Just be careful that your wife doesn't steal them, because that continues to happen in my household. And we got some big things planned with those guys for later in the year. So stay tuned, because we'll probably have some live events and things like that going on in Athens with Home Field as we get into the season. But we appreciate you guys supporting us, and we hope you will support them. All right, Josh, do you have any other thoughts or anything that stood out to you this week in the Georgia sphere?
I don't have anything in the Georgia sphere, but if anybody's wondering why I'm wearing a Kennesaw State hat, my son is now enrolled, and we dropped him off at campus yesterday. So I'm a proud owl dad, and just wanted to show a little KSU love here in this show. So apologize if that's offensive to anybody, but I'm an owl dad.
Good for you, man. That's awesome. Did you guys survive the saying goodbye part without melting into puddles?
It was pretty solid. I mean, I think my wife is she's got a full plate of work and stuff too, so that's a distraction. But I think this weekend, come Sunday night, it might be a little rough around here. So, but we're good. He's extremely excited. He's extremely ready. So, it is what it is, man. It's part of life coming at you. And for anybody that's got any youngins, you know what it's all about. And when they say it goes by in a blink of an eye, that is 100% true.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, congratulations to him and congratulations to you guys and go Owls, man. Kennesaw State, they're an up and
It might be,
comer in
it might
multiple
be in the
sports.
ACC. They might be in the ACC by this time next week. Who knows?
Yeah, the super conference with Kennesaw State, Stanford, SMU. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. All right, well, speaking of super conferences, we got the Big 12 on deck today here, and man, like, talk about a fascinating league, right? Obviously, a lot of changes going on there, and we have this kind of 1 year that we're going into where the conference is going to, be in its current format with, I believe it's 14 teams. Yeah.
Yes, 14. They added Houston, Cincinnati, BYU, and Central Florida.
Correct. You got it. You're on top of it. And obviously, Texas and Oklahoma are in kind of their last year here with the Big 12. So straight off, before we even get into the mechanics of like any of these teams, just looking, because it's the win total pods. So we're gonna look at win totals. Both Texas and Oklahoma are sitting at 9.5 wins in Vegas. And then the next closest team in the league is Kansas State at a full win under that. And then TCU is another full win under that, as well as Texas Tech. They're both at 7.5. So how much of an embarrassment would it be to Texas and Oklahoma if one of them doesn't win the conference?
I think they're used to being embarrassed in the last few years, to be honest. So I think it would definitely be noteworthy, certainly in the Twitter sphere, and in Texas especially. That would be viewed nothing more than a failure, and it would squarely put Sarkisian squarely on a hot seat, in my opinion, if he doesn't at least get to the Big 12 title game. So,
I agree.
And
I agree with
yeah,
you. Absolutely.
and just and TCU, I mean, all jokes 65-7 aside, they got by and got lucky. In any other year, they weren't as good as Texas. They weren't as good as Oklahoma. They found a way to win a bunch of close games, and they were not really versus Oklahoma and Texas. I mean, it's really inexcusable for to be Texas to be basically out of the Big 12 race, by mid-November. It's just is really just last year was really, I mean, a real letdown. I thought for sure they would win the Big 12, and I wasn't saying Texas was back, but I just didn't see any other rosters that were could compete with them, and so I'm they're clearly the preseason, and I'm sure I can't remember what the media did, but I'm sure they're picked to win the league again. That 9.5 win total is the same as Oklahoma, but only because they go to Alabama, which Vegas is already counting as a loss. If they had scheduled any other home game or or neutral site game, they'd probably be 10.5 win total. But so it would be embarrassing. That's a long answer to say. Yeah, it would suck
for sure. And so I'm putting up some kind of conference-wide metrics here. This is from your advanced season preview that this is all data that you've pulled together, done a fabulous job with it. You and our friend Chris Marler over at Saturday Down South pulling all this together. I've told a lot of people this, but I'll say it again because it deserves to be said. This guide that you guys have put together, there's things that are in it that normally I would have 5 or 6 windows open on my computer trying to compile all of this information about one team. And you guys have it here in one place. So this kind of metrics plus team returning production chart that you got here, is there, in terms of kind of the conference wide metrics and returning production stuff, is there any big takeaways that you feel like we should know before we dive into Texas?
Well, I mean, I think it segues nice into Texas. I mean, Texas and Kansas are returning 80. Texas is 85 and Kansas is 91% returning production wise, offensively. Texas was 48% success rate. It just seems like all the trends and all the metrics team-wise are pointing towards Texas. But you don't see, if you look at some of the player efficiency ratings, you don't see a lot of Texas players in there. But they obviously lost Bijan Robinson to the NFL.
Interesting.
But they've got a lot of pieces there, and I think a lot of pieces that should be poised to continue to step forward. So with that, I'll let you kick us off with Texas, because anything you look at this, it just Texas jumps off the page. So I think he's the they're the bevo in the room, so to speak. So we should probably just get into it.
Good. Well said. Yeah. First of all, Texas, you said it already. We both said it, 9.5 wins, but it's worth mentioning that Vegas has this juice pretty heavily to the over, -140 on the over versus +120 on the under. Those are the latest numbers that I pulled off DraftKings last night. When I look at Texas, you just said it, like, it all makes sense from a roster standpoint. It all makes sense. But then I look at who's in charge. We've got 5 losses when leading by 14 plus points in the last 2 years for the Longhorns. Last season, all 5 of their losses were by 1 score. Steve Sarkisian has never won more than 9 games in a season, and he has coached for 9 years at Washington, USC, and Texas. Those are 3. I wouldn't call USC and Texas are definitely blue blood programs. Washington is a borderline blue blood program. Like, they have national title history that's not ancient. I look at their team last year, and I think this team is going to be better on offense, but we got some dogs in the background here.
They're muted, right?
So anyways, Texas is one of only 7 teams to finish in the top 20 for opponent adjusted offense and defense in 2022. The other ones were Georgia, Alabama, Florida State, LSU, Michigan, and Penn State. My point being is, I think they're good this year, and I think they, in some ways they might be better than last year, but do we trust Steve Sarkisian to take this roster and get the maximum output from it?
No, I expect him to be in the Big 12 title game, lose a game he shouldn't, and squeak in there, and we'll tweet things like does less with more. But they're gonna. I think they can lose a couple games, and I think that's the mentality. Like you say, I mean, I don't know what cliches we can use, but they're all there. Can't win the big game, can't get him over the top. But I still think that this league is set up for him to figure out a way to get in the Big 12 title game. Quinn Ewers I think he's going to have a great year. I just worry about the defense coming together, and when you don't have a solid defense, you sometimes can get outscored, and I think that's going to happen to them. We're going to, obviously, the second week of the season. That's the thing, too. I mean, if they go into Tuscaloosa and they get blown out, or they get beat soundly, or even if they lose a close one, everyone's going to excuse it. So, and he's going to be running out of excuses. So he's got to, and then, you just got a Kansas State team that everyone always underestimates. You've got a rebuilding TCU team and an Oklahoma team I don't know what to make of. So,
Oklahoma's tough. I look at their, Ewers was, I think, pretty good for a freshman quarterback. I don't know if he was healthy all year. It sounds like he spent a lot of time, working on kind of some more underneath stuff and his accuracy there. But like you mentioned, they lost Bijan. They also lost Roschon Johnson at running back. You've downgraded there and you've upgraded at wide receiver, right? You brought in A.D. Mitchell. Isaiah Nayer, who was a stud at Wyoming, is back and healthy. You got Xavier Worthy, he's got 1,741 yards and 21 touchdowns over the last 2 years. I'm curious about this defense, I guess is what I'm trying to say. They had 10 starters who were on the all Big 12 teams last year on defense, and they do get 6 of those back. and they get Jalen Catalon to come over from Arkansas and play safety. But not to harp on it and make the same point over and over, but like I go through what they really were last year, and I can't square some of the like play-by-play metrics and the overall stats with them being an 8-4 team. Like it doesn't make sense. Like how was that team 8-4 in that league?
One thing I keep looking at, and if I have this chart in the guide that talks, it's got your PFF guys graded 70 plus and how many you bring back to have a certain number. Texas A&M is at the bottom of the list, but so many of those guys,
Texas or Texas A&M?
Texas A&M. But my point is, those guys had a lot of players in the 60s and the high 60s that just didn't get over that 70. So if you look at Texas, and you look they've got 3 guys in the front in the secondary and 2 guys that had actually the secondary guys were good, but a lot of them in the 50s. Like, they're not missing that PFF grade by a little bit; they're missing it by a lot. There's a lot of question marks. I mean, certainly you expect improvement there, but how much improvement can you realistically expect from these guys? So, obviously they bring in the kid from Arkansas. So they clearly were not happy there. I mean, you're going to the portal and trying to plug holes. So that's just not so again, it's just like, this is the biggest question mark. Can they improve, and can they make that jump to be elite or close to elite on defense? I don't really expect it. I think they're going to be a lot of fun on offense, and I think they're going to move the ball around a lot. But they run up against good defense that holds them under 30, and it's going to be tough I don't expect this team to be able to shut down guys on the other side of the ball. So, the defense is it, man. It really is the biggest question mark they got.
All right, so we got their schedule up on the screen here right now. Are you over or under on this 9.5 wins?
Let me see. Rice, they're going to be. Let's just say they're going to be 1-1. 2 losses, 3 losses. All right, so Oklahoma. I think they're going to beat Oklahoma, but it's just whether they're going to get through Kansas State and Baylor and Texas Tech. Those are the guys that I think. I don't know if they're toss-ups. So are they going to go 3-0 against those guys? I see it. I can see it. A 1 loss in the Big. Nah, they're going to lose 2 in the Big 10. They're Big 12. They're going to lose 2. So give me an upset. Loss to Kansas State. Yeah, going under. Yeah, I think they're going to go. They're going to go 1-2 against Oklahoma, Kansas State, and maybe a Baylor. They got to go to Baylor. You get Texas Tech at home. So I'm going to go 9-3. I'm going to go 9-3.
I think I'm there with you, and this is kind of a gut feel play. This is not something I would go play in Vegas with my own money. I think like the variance for Texas is so wide, and it's because some of you guys in the YouTube chat here, Green Soldier, like, I think you make a good point. Like, I do think there is some sort of, call it a mental thing, call it like I don't want to say they have culture issues, because I'm not saying they got kids running around wild doing crazy shit, but like, I don't think that Steve Sarkisian teams historically are not really like built to be mentally tough. And if he gets that figured out, then like hats off to him. I'll be the first dude to congratulate him and say, like, this guy's turned a corner in his career, and Texas is moving into the SEC. And if they continue to recruit an elite level, then they could be on a path to, compete to be one of the top 4 programs in the conference. But I got to see it to believe it, man. 9 years at those 3 programs that he's coached at, and, only being 12 games over 500. I know that doesn't have anything to do with this year's roster, but like, again, I brought it up earlier. Their roster last year was really good. Their OL had legit talent, top 40 in run push / pass protection in 2022. Their defense was terrible on 3rd down conversion percentage, but that was about it. That was the only thing that was really wrong. I think that there is a chance they beat Alabama. So I'm having a hard time kind of like squaring that with what I'm feeling about their total because I think it's gonna be hard for them to go on the road and win that game. But like I also think if Alabama hasn't figured out their quarterback situation yet, there is a chance that Texas just goes in there and just outscores them, and maybe doesn't even really play that well on defense, but it just doesn't matter because Alabama's offense isn't really functioning at a high level yet. Like that's a scenario that I think is possible. But I'm gonna do the thing that I did last year. Go down their schedule. Alabama, better coach. Wyoming, Craig Bowl, better coach. Baylor, Aranda, better coach. Kansas, better coach. Oklahoma, I don't know if it's a better coach. Houston, don't think so. BYU, maybe. Kansas State, absolutely a better coach. TCU, better coach. Iowa State, not so sure. Texas Tech, better coach. And I think at some point in some of these games, like 5 losses in 1-score games in 2022 might be a little bit of a canary in the coal mine for Texas and how they manage things. I know that he's brought in Paul Chris as an analyst. He's got Gary Patterson there. Like he has good help, but I don't know that Sarkisian's self-belief allows him to listen to those guys on the headset in the middle of a game, especially when it comes to what to do with his offense. I think he has such a track record as a play caller that he never really is going to kind of take feedback in real time from the other guys on his staff about what to do in a key third down situation late in the game. And I think that costs him football games, and I think it'll cost him football games again this year. I think the over-under is going to swing on that Bama game. History would tell us to favor Bama, so I'll say under. I'm not that confident on it, but I am confident that despite all the talent, despite the high-flying receivers in the offense, that Texas won't compete for a national title or, ultimately a college football playoff bid because they just aren't built to do it from a coaching staff, line of scrimmage culture standpoint. So,
yeah, I mean, I've been picking on the defense. I mean, they were sub 40% success rate allowed, and if they're clutch and they improve that spot you talked about on third downs, they could be a defense that could be one of the better ones in the league. Against and they're going to get a lot of they get the schedule because of the new Big 12 teams is a little easier, I guess I would say.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those they're not Power 5 rosters, so I'm still going to go. I think this is still a team that's going to lose a game or two they shouldn't.
I would. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I wouldn't be surprised at all if Alabama is. I mean, that's going to be a fun game no matter what. So many question marks.
It will.
But yeah.
Yeah, and I like Kansas State. I think Baylor, I don't know what they're going to be, but if they figure it out a little bit on offense with Blake Shapen, I think their defense could be one of the few that can really give Texas problems. Like I trust Aranda to draw up a defensive game plan.
Yeah, they got to get that TCU monkey off their back too. So.
They do, and I mean, I know it's a weird spot, and I mean, when we get to this, I'm going to fade the shit out of Iowa State's win total because we don't know how long their kids are going to be suspended for gambling. But by the time you get to the second to last week of the year, they'll have everybody back from suspension, I would imagine, depending on how all that plays out. But they'll have figured it out. Matt Campbell, I think he's overhyped in some ways, but he'll have his team functioning at a high level by the second to last game of the year. Ames is a weird place to play. It's cold as hell up there that time of year, and it feels like one of those games that Texas could get up there in the wind and the cold, and maybe they're out of the title race or whatever, nationally already, and they just kind of fold up a little bit. We'll see, though. That's totally speculative.
So, are you taking 10-2?
No, I'm going under, man. I'm going under.
Okay.
I like I said, I don't have a strong conviction on it, but I just have it's a principle play, man. Steve Sarkisian's never won more than 9 games. Why would I bet on him to do it until I've seen him do it? You know what I mean?
All right. Unders.
Under Texas. All right. Let's talk about the other side of Red River, the Oklahoma Sooners. Really weird team last year. 6-6. Well, really 6-7. First losing season there since like the early to mid 90s under John Blake.
I was deep diving in some of the coaches poll. They have been preseason ranked by the coaches 22 consecutive years, and no other team has that many consecutively. And so, I mean, not Alabama and not Ohio State. So, yeah, they've been – it's kind of interesting to think about how, just stable that program has been, And, yeah, that was an unstable year, and a new coach makes you kind of scratch your head a little bit. And, Venables had, I believe, that he had a lot of opportunities to move to a head coaching position, and he finally took that one. And he took it in a weird spot. He watched several of his best players walk out the door, and didn't really replace them with, what you would expect at Oklahoma.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Oklahoma, I would seriously nationally, it's hilarious because when that Oklahoma-Georgia game got canceled, a lot of the narrative was like, look how easy Georgia's schedule is now. Look how easy Oklahoma's schedule is now without that game. Arkansas State, SMU at home, at Tulsa. That's your non-con. And then you get, your Big 12 road games. You draw at Cincinnati, at Kansas, at Oklahoma State, and at BYU. That's a pretty favorable draw, you don't have to go on the road to some of the tougher places to play in the league. You don't play like Kansas State, you don't play Baylor. They get a really, really good draw here. I think that there's probably a much better than 50% chance that they're undefeated going into the Red River rivalry, even though I don't know if they're going to be any good. You know what I mean? I don't know how to measure this team early in the season.
If you just go by win totals, there's only Texas and SMU are the only ones that have more than 7.5 win totals this season. Yeah. So, yeah.
When I, a month ago or so, when I started diving into win totals, I was scrolling through one of the sports books and I was like, why the hell is Oklahoma 9.5? What do people know that I don't? It's just, how could they not be with this schedule in a way? But let's talk about their actual team. Is there anything that stands out for you in terms of personnel or, metric stuff?
I guess you're going to go back to Dylan Gabriel, who has trouble staying healthy. I mean, he's, when he played, he had a good season last year. I mean, he graded out at 87 by PFF, 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He ran the ball 47 times and 6 TDs. But really didn't. Yeah, but they had some quality behind him, that comes back. 133 attempts, rushing the ball, 190 targets. Nobody great. Austin Stogner's coming back for whatever that's
Drake
worth.
Stoops.
Drake Stoops. Yeah.
Baby Stoops.
Modern. So, you expect the defense to be better. They had a lot of their defense was definitely the high, I think, which is what you don't say that about Oklahoma a lot. Their defense was improved. So maybe if they get some
I don't know that they were, man. I thought that defense was pretty bad last year, weren't they? 5.7 yards play allowed.
Yeah.
I guess the success rate's not that bad. I just felt like
they can improve. I mean, they were above 42% success rates. Not great. I mean, I think too. He's a defensive guy, and he probably didn't really. He probably paid more attention to that. And was probably I expect him to grow and let that defense get better this season. They've got players there.
It'd be
some
weird
of
if
a
they
loss.
didn't have a good defense.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think Kirby's first year, the defense was pretty suspect too. It's just like, which is
Mhm.
ironic. You expect a defensive guy. So, uh, uh, but I guess some of these players, you got 5 or 6, you got 11 guys on both sides of the ball that were PFF 70 plus, 6 of them on defense. So, I think there are pieces there. I think there's pieces there to be better on defense, and they do have a favorable schedule. Yeah, I just don't know about this offense. I'm just not a
Yeah.
big believer in Dylan Gabriel is going to lead a Power Five team to a conference title. And that's what you're playing for at Oklahoma.
I mean, I hear you, and I intuitively I feel the same, and then I look at it and I'm like, well, is the stats and numbers that you read off, 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 415 rushing yards from the quarterback spot is phenomenal, especially when you remember that sacks are taken out of that, especially only 47 attempts. That's not far off 10 yards a carry for him. I also, though, am just like, yeah, when I watch him, my eyes don't really see the same thing as the raw production there. But you mentioned the defense, like they were outside the top 100 in pass D and rush D in 2022. So like they have to get better there. I mean, like not only do they have to be successful, but it just feels like inevitably they have to improve. They brought in a lot of good recruits, I think. Like, I mean, that's one thing I'll say for Venables is they signed the highest ranked recruiting class in program history last cycle. Number 4 was higher than anything Lincoln ever signed, higher than anything Stoops ever signed. So like there will be some good young raw talent. Jackson Arnold, maybe like that kid was the Elite 11 MVP. He's a true freshman quarterback. Part of me wonders if the Gabriel thing is going, not well early in the year. Could they maybe go to him? Because the schedule we talked about, like they're gonna be up big in some of these games, and because of that, you're gonna have a chance to let this kid go out and sling it and play. But I agree with you, man. Like I think your analysis was kind of questioning some of the offensive weapons. I mean, they brought in Andrew Anthony from Michigan, who I remember when we did our whole kind of Orange Bowl preview for those guys a couple years ago. Like he had some nice plays on tape where he got behind the defense, but not really. I mean, 19 targets last year for Michigan with only 80 yards receiving and a touchdown. I don't know that he's much other than like a go route specialist.
Yeah. Hey, to touch back on that defense, it's bringing back a lot of snaps and a lot, especially in the defensive front, 5,500 snaps, 220 pressures. That's the most. Both of those are the most in the Big 12. So, it didn't seem like he went into the portal too much to get on the defensive side of the ball. So he must feel
Does
confident
that
what he's
mean he
got.
likes? Yeah, what he
I think
has.
so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think if you've got gaping holes or guys you want to, you go into the portal and you get some guys. I mean, I think that's the conventional wisdom. Um, so yeah, I mean, I expect him to be better on defense. I just don't believe the offense is really what we're used to seeing in Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'm curious. I think you're right about the offense not really being that good. The question is, let's talk about the total here and kind of make our picks. Like, who is going to be good enough on defense to create enough problems for them, basically, to make it matter that maybe they're a mediocre offense, that is top 20 in a lot of metrics through 2/3 of the season just because of who they've seen on their schedule.
Yeah, this feels like a team that I might take the over, but this seems like a team that's not going to compete against Texas. They might get them twice. If they rematch in the Big 12 title game, If you go down the roster, Arkansas State, you expect that to be an easy win. SMU, that's an 8-win total team, but that's a group of 5 team, so that's probably one of the better group of 5 teams, but you still expect that to be a home win. At Tulsa, win. Cincinnati, win. Like you said, here he goes. Iowa State should be a win, and we're undefeated in the Red River Shootout. Yeah, I think Texas is going to outclass them. UCF has got such a brutal schedule.
But I could see them winning a game like this. I could see this being. I could see. UCF is a decent defense. Yeah, they can slop a game up. I don't trust Oklahoma State to beat them. I don't think I trust Kansas to beat them. Definitely not West Virginia.
I think TCU and Oklahoma State technically. You hear the dog snorting over here. Good gosh, dog. He's like a 20-pound French bulldog. He's the loudest creature on earth. Yeah, where are the losses? Here's the thing. I just think that UCF, Kansas, Oklahoma State, and TCU are all losses in play, right? So I don't think they're 50-50 games, but I can see them going and lose to – God, I'm going to talk myself into 10-2. I still think they're a 9-3 team. I just think they're –
I'm going over, man.
All right.
I mean, I don't think they're going to be that good, but – look, man, I mean, just looking at the schedule, there is I might take when I, finish doing all of my futures bets and make sure I get everything placed that I want to get placed, I might put like a 0.2 unit flyer on them to make the college football playoff just because of the schedule. Like, I mean, you said it. They probably do lose to Texas. But that's actually an advantage if they have to rematch in the Big 12. So all of a sudden you look up, they could be 11-1 with a chance to play Texas in the Big 12 and avenge their only loss of the season. And at that point, can you really keep them out of the CFP, right?
No, I mean, a conference title, 12-win team, how many teams are going to be better than that? So I just don't think they're going to be there. But, there's a path for sure. I mean, absolutely a path. Especially, hell, they could. Who knows? They might, if they were undefeated and they beat Texas. Watch out!
Right.
I mean, if they
get through that Texas game with a win.
I just don't know. I'm just not convinced of this offense. That's all. Just not. I just think they're going to screw one or two up. I just don't believe in this conference overall. As you can tell,
well,
I think this is just going to be. It's going to look like the Pac-12, where everybody's got 2 losses come late November.
Yeah, except for the Pac-12 is actually good this year.
No, I meant last year. Excuse me. No, Pac-12 might have 2 losses, but they're going to be awesome. I mean, I can't wait to. The top half of that league is so fun to watch. It's going to be awesome. All right, I'm under.
All right, I'm over. Let's move on to maybe my sentimental favorite in the Big 12, the Kansas State Wildcats. Defending conference champions, coming back with Kleiman at the helm still. Return a ton on the offensive line. Still a very, very solid team. Like, nobody in America is getting better output out of lower recruiting rankings than Chris Kleiman. But Deuce Vaughn's gone. Malik Knowles is gone. Who's going to make the explosive plays? Because they return all 5 starting offensive linemen. Can they find somebody to, pound behind
Trayshawn Ward? Trayshawn Ward's coming over from Florida State. They saw a need. Yeah, they saw a need. They went and got a guy out of the portal. I mean, I think I had to triple check this. I couldn't believe it. It's like, because I grab all this stuff, I'm pulling data from everywhere, and it was like, and I check it against 2022 team, and I was like, man, really? Did he come over?
That guy's there? Did. Yeah. It's so weird now. Yeah, it's going to happen like week 1, week 2. You're going to turn on some game and be like, wait a second. Why does that dude play for this team? What do you think, man? I mean, what's your overall vibe with them? Because if you believe in Trayshawn Ward. Do you believe in Will Howard, the quarterback?
Yeah, I do. I think that the Big 12 runs through Manhattan, right?
Manhattan, the Little Apple, baby. Yeah, hell yeah.
The Little Apple, right? So I absolutely believe in this team. I believe in the coach. I just think they're just one of those teams that you always just kind of forget about until you look up and they're 7-1, 6-0, something like that, and you're like, and they start to scare every team that they got to play coming down the stretch. So I absolutely love this team.
Yeah,
they got to replace a lot on defense, but I think, like you said, there's not a bunch of names, not a lot of stars that we're going to see, but this team just gets guys to play for them and gets guys to execute. So I don't necessarily see that as a problem. So I like this team.
I'm with you, man. I like them a lot as well. I think the offense is going to be good. I talked to a very well plugged in Texas media member at SEC Media Days during one of the little kind of reception things there, and I was just kind of asking questions because I'm a football nerd, and we were chatting about their season last year, and he said to me, he was like, I told people before that game, if Kansas State plays Adrian Martinez, they're probably going to lose, but if they play the Howard kid, I think they win. And he was like, they played Martinez and they lost a close game where they turned it over at the very end, but I think they've upgraded at quarterback with Howard, and I think he's going to protect the football. I think he's definitely much more two-dimensional, so to speak, than Martinez was. Like, I thought Martinez improved as a passer throughout his career, but he still wasn't a guy that was going to like consistently beat you with his arm if you weren't respecting what he could do with his legs that day. And I think Howard might be able to do that for them. They got Ben Sinnott or Sino. I forget how to pronounce his name at tight end, but that was the dude they called Mini Gronk at the end of last year. It's just a question on defense, really. And I also, looking at their schedule, that Missouri game at Missouri, I know that I know that Kansas State beat the crap out of them last year, but that game does give me a little bit of pause. I worry that Mizzou, with what they have on defense, might be able to give them some trouble. But looking at their Big 12 schedule.
Well, let me jump in here on it if I can just talk for a second, because what I talked about with some of Texas had a bunch of players that had 4 or 5 players were in 70s and a bunch in the 50s. Kansas State brings a lot of guys back in the 60s. A lot of from both secondary and in the front seven. So I think this defense is going to be fine. I think it's going to be fine. And like you said, let's look at the schedule, because they've got that Missouri game's interesting. Right at the beginning, not the beginning of the year, but in September, they got to go to Como and play Missouri. I'm taking that as a win. I think this Kansas State team is going to be. I kind of like them to be back in the Big 12 title game, so I'm going to count that as a win. They got SEMO to start and Troy, so they're going to potentially give you 3-0 with UCF coming to town.
Okay,
like 4-0. Give me the Wildcats over Oklahoma State. That Texas Tech game is going to be I think they're going over. Yeah, I think they're going over, but I think that Texas Tech that Oklahoma State, they got to go back-to-back weeks. I'm thinking that's the same. I'm not sure if they get a bye in there or not. Sorry, I don't have that bye information in front of me. But they go at Oklahoma State and at Texas Tech. So you feel like 1-1 there is probably a good outcome for them. And they're back-to-back weeks, yeah. They get to bye after UCF. So they do get to bye ahead of those 2 big road games. TCU. All right, so that's a tough stretch right there. That might be the toughest stretch in the Big 12.
It is. Yeah, especially when, I know Houston's not good, but you still go, you go to Texas right after that 3-game stretch that you brought up. 4 out of 5 against Oklahoma on the road against Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and Texas is tough.
Yeah, so they got to go 3-2 in those 5 weeks, and then they got to
Right.
win out.
And they got to beat Baylor at home, which, I think on paper right now, I feel like they should, but there's only one win between those two teams.
Yeah.
So over or under, make your choice, man. Let's go.
All right, I'm going over.
Shot.
9-3.
You're going over.
Yeah, 9-3.
Again, I'm going over. It's a principal play. I trust Chris Kleiman. I just feel like that's it.
Yeah,
I believe in Chris Kleiman. It's that simple.
Yeah. Another rematch. Well, I guess they have to rematch just about every year in the Big 12, which is kind of a bummer. So yeah, I like Texas and Kansas State in the Big 12 title game. Yeah.
Nice.
Who we got? Who
we're gonna go through TCU and Texas Tech, and then we'll go kind of rapid fire through the rest of these. Not that I have a ton to say about either TCU or Texas Tech, but TCU obviously we know well. The Hypnotoads coming off of their national title game appearance / letdown to Georgia. I think that there's this thing that's happened where the pendulum has swung maybe too far in the other direction in terms of like how people are viewing TCU. A lot of people are like, well, they got beat 65-7 in a national title game. And that is true. That did happen, but they also beat Michigan. All right. Like it wasn't a fluke that they were there. They had a lucky season. They had a lot of late game luck. They won a lot of 1-score games, but at the end of the day, like they're not as bad, I think, as many people are kind of maybe thinking that they are, just because that last performance is what's fresh in their minds.
You got to replace the quarterback. They got to replace the running back. They brought in Trey Sanders. See, this offense is scattered with portal players. So
they got a ton out of the portal. JoJo Earl from Bama. They got, they got 3 portal receivers from P5 programs. They got the Brockemeyer kid, who was a 5-star at Bama, but kind of busted out there. Chandler Morris was the guy that they started to start last season, though, if you remember.
Yeah, that's right. You are correct.
Interesting.
He's been in the program a bunch. You expect Sonny to have him ready to play. It's got to be. Last year they caught lightning in a bottle. They had a lot of close. They won all their close games. So you expect that kind of pendulum to swing back. And I think the win total shows that, at a 7.5 win total. That you're expecting. What are you expecting that Colorado game?
I think TCU is going to house them.
Okay, all right.
I think they're going to beat them by like 30.
And then so what are their tough games on here? Texas.
SMU is going to be a tough
Kansas
game. SMU is probably the first chance for a loss, I would think. But you're right. They might go into that Kansas State game with 1 loss.
Yeah. But that back half of that schedule is brutal, dude. At Kansas State, at Texas Tech, Texas at home, Baylor at home, at Oklahoma. Oof.
I could see them. This is still juice to the over at -130, despite that back half that you're talking about. I think Vegas is assuming a win over SMU, obviously, in that scenario. But I don't know. I think they're going to hurt. I think losing Garrett Riley is going to hurt them a lot, man. I think that's going to be tough.
Yeah.
What do you? Are you over or under on this? They're dead last in returning production on offense.
Yeah. Give me. Can you get him to 7-8-4? Nah, I think this has got a 7-5 season written all over it. Just 2. I think they're gonna. Yeah. They could end the season with a 5-game losing streak. It's definitely in play.
I think it starts off well, and man, I'm gonna say I don't know. I mean,
Almost
they
like
keep
they.
Jamoy Hodge, they keep Bud Clark, they keep some guys on defense. They still got Timon Mitchell, and I'm gonna say they go 8-4. I'm gonna say they squeak it out and get the over. I'm gonna trust the. It's really just because I trust the staff. I think Sonny Dykes is a good head coach. That's I know that's not like deep analysis, but that is my personal opinion on the matter.
All right. And then
All
we've
right.
got Texas Tech.
We got Texas Tech, and then we're going to do a rapid fire win total roulette here on the rest of the Big 12. Texas Tech, man, over under is 7.5. Good season last year under Joey McGuire. This is juiced a little bit to the under, but not heavily. I mean, I guess what sticks out immediately at their schedule is that week 2 home game against Oregon is going to be a pretty big deal. And then, I mean, they had a good first year. They're like Texas Tech historically is not a high ceiling program, and they went 8-5 to kick off this tenure under oh my God, what is this guy's name? The coach. Holy cow.
I'm drawing a blank too. I was hoping you would remember.
Joey
McGuire.
McGuire.
Joe,
Yeah, Joey
thank you.
McGuire. I mean,
Brings back
he's a
his quarter.
Texas high school guy. He came up through the high school ranks in Texas. So, like, I think that he has them functioning well in terms of recruiting and in-state relationships.
Yeah. They kind of got lucky. They put up 33 a game. They ran it 55% of the time. They had a good offensive rush success rate. Not great. They kind of got a little bit of smoke and mirrors, but they, that's what you got to do sometimes when your roster is a little overmatched. They're bringing back the quarterback, bringing back a running back, bunch of O-line snaps. They bring in Rusty Stotts from Western Kentucky to, I guess, compete or possibly take over.
Dude, what a name, Rusty Stotts.
Yeah. It seems like he's poised to be, the center. So yeah.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
All right,
that blew my mind.
No, that's all good. Yeah.
I mean, I think one thing that was interesting is they went 6-1 at home last year. Like they're invested. They just did a big stadium rebuild. Like I think they have a chance in this new Big 12 era to become one of the top programs. I think that bringing Tyler Shuck back, because they played multiple quarterbacks last year before him, and then that offense really took off when he came into the picture. I think they're going to be very good on offense. I also think they've got, good weapons. They've got a trio of receivers in White, Price, and Martinez, and then they've got a 5-star tight end, Baylor Cupp. That's
well, if you think they're going to be better on offense, and they made a huge jump. They allowed under 40% defensive success rate, and like I said, the offense was only 42%. Actually, a step back from years before. So if they keep getting better on defense and they improve on offense, it could be a force to be reckoned with. I know Harry in the comments likes him, and a lot of people are on Texas Tech as a sneaky good team, which they are.
Yeah.
So yeah, if Texas Tech's defense is not something you often think about, but if they're good on defense, they could play spoiler a lot. So
and Tim DeRuyter is a good defensive coordinator. He has a good history at other big programs, A&M, Oregon. They're very like, one thing that Brett Cianca said in his preview was interesting was they were only 57th in takeaways last year, and their defense is hyper focused on takeaways. So if that turnover luck bounces their way a little more often, I think that like they could maybe actually peak out pretty hard. Let's look at the schedule here. So you play at Wyoming. That's a weird opener, but I think they'll win that game. Obviously, Oregon coming to town is going to be tough, but they do get. We talked about that game in our Pac-12 preview. I don't have a good read on it either way, but I'm not just giving it to Oregon.
Okay.
What?
I was going to say you expect that to be an Oregon win, but it's a road game early in the season. Things happen.
I expect it to be, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm just not calling it 100%. Like I would say the next 3 games on their schedule are 100% wins. Worst case scenario, they start 4-1. Okay, and then they go into the Baylor and Kansas State is kind of a tough back-to-back before you get BYU, TCU. It's a tough schedule, man. I mean, by Big 12 standards,
they've got to get to the over. I feel like they got to beat Kansas. Mm-hmm. They got to go, and that's a road game, and they got to beat
UCF,
and Baylor. Those are the games that are going to be what this swings on. I feel like Baylor's on the road. You figure, that Houston game, you expect that to be a win, but if that's I'm gonna take the under here. I think this is gonna be a 7-5 team. Yeah, I just think that Kansas game. I think it's gonna swing on that. At Kansas late in the year, that there's a lot of confidence in that, and I just feel like they could. They got to go to BYU too. That's another little.
So you're going over or under?
Under.
Okay. Even though I said all that really nice shit about them, I am going under as well. Just the schedule, I think, is actually. You know what? I trust Joey McGuire. I think they lose Kansas State, they lose Texas, they lose Oregon, put you at 9-3. You could still lose to Baylor and be 8-4. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
And you're going to take them over at Kansas?
I think they'll beat Kansas.
Okay.
I think Kansas comes back to earth, dropping like a stone this year. Personal opinion there. Okay. Is there any other Big 12 teams that you have a particular interest in discussing in a more in-depth manner?
Nothing in depth.
Okay.
I think the fact that we're not even talking about Baylor, I think tells you a little bit about they're always tough. They went 6-7 last year. You expect them to bounce back.
That's probably a mistake on our part to not be talking about them, honestly.
It's okay. It's all right. We got cursed at because we did a Pac-12 preview last week. Everyone wants Georgia SEC stuff, but I get it. It's all good.
It's been good participation this time. Thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in.
I'm sorry. I haven't been monitoring the chat. I've been looking at my notes and stuff.
It's been busy.
I've got a lot of unders here, so I got to start taking some overs here. So I'm going to take an 8-4 bounce back year for Baylor.
Okay.
I think the schedule sets up well for them. They don't play. Dude, what is the schedule? They don't play Texas or Oklahoma. Look at that. There you go.
How
you get to? Yeah, they don't get to.
Well,
they got. Yeah,
they got Utah.
They got Utah. Yeah, I think that's an 8-4 team, and then UCF. This is noteworthy on UCF. I don't think anybody out here is putting money on the over/under on UCF, but they don't have back-to-back home games. That's something that
Oh, interesting.
They do not go. They don't have a single game back-to-back home, and that's a lot of travel. So you could be looking at if this team kind of collapses down the stretch. I think a lot of people, it could be a case
You
study
talking
in
about Baylor?
the. I'm sorry, I'm talking about UCF.
Oh,
UCF.
well,
I had moved on in my mind.
let me make my Baylor pick.
Right.
I'm just gonna say Baylor. I'm going over on Baylor. Continue with UCF. I apologize.
Going under on UCF, just for
You
all those
are
reasons. Yeah.
okay because UCF's win total, interestingly enough, if you do feel strongly on that under, there is a lot of value in betting that under. It's plus 150 to the under.
Yeah.
So that's a good nugget.
They got to
If
go.
any of you have said here all this time.
Yeah, they go to Boise State, so they don't even. It's the schedule is kind of broke against them this year to do that game, and then they
To
go
Kansas
on the
State.
road every other week. Yeah. And then they got Kansas at Oklahoma. I mean, I can see them losing to Cincinnati, even West Virginia, I think, is in play at that. I mean, like if they lose to West Virginia at home, it's because they're exhausted on the schedule and this drive and stuff. So I got the under there. You want to jump to Kansas?
Hold on, let me talk about UCF. I'm going over on UCF just because I think everyone's assuming there's some curve for them to come into the Big 12, and I think on some level there is, but I don't think it's as big as people think. I think their talent is pretty comparable or better to your average middle of the road Big 12 team. I think they get out with the closing stretch. I think they win 4 out of 5 of those last 5 games. I think they get Oklahoma State at home. Gundy's team's probably be on quit watch by then. Yeah, I'm going under. We'll move on though. Kansas. We skipped Oklahoma State. What do you think on Oklahoma State? They are an exact minus 110 on the over and minus 110 on the under.
They just seem like they're always going to go 7-6, don't they? So 7-6 would be that over.
Mm-hmm.
They don't play Texas. Yeah, give me the over on that.
Okay. Yeah. I'm with you, man. I think betting against them is probably never smart, honestly, especially coming off of a bad year. He's never really had bad seasons in back-to-back years, and one of you in the chat pointed that out earlier, so I want to give you proper kudos. But what do you think about Kansas? 6 wins. 6 wins is their total. Over is the minus 125. Under is plus 105.
Yeah, give me. I think they will. They're going to lose both to Texas and to Oklahoma. That Illinois game. Oof,
I think, yeah, it's telling because, when you made this preview, they were at 6.5, and Vegas is taking them all the way down to 6. It's juiced towards the over, but I still think I like the under here. And it's not because I don't think that Lance Leipold's a great coach, because he is, and all of that. And I could see them upsetting somebody. Like, I could see them screwing up Oklahoma's season, or, Kansas State, or maybe somebody like that. But I just don't think they have the, I think that defense is going to be in for a rough go of it, man.
I think their road games are Iowa State, Cincinnati, Texas, and Nevada, and Oklahoma State. So I think they can go 3-2 in those. And I think if they can go 3-2 in those road games with wins at Nevada, Cincinnati, and Iowa State, I think they're going over. So do you? Okay. And I'm going over. I'm going to go 7. I can see a 7-5 season out of Kansas.
Fair enough. All right. You're over. I'm under. BYU. one of my kind of sentimental favorites since I've lived out west, and wrote a big article on them when I went to the New Mexico Bowl last year. Kind of like the last college program that feels like a high school program in terms of how they interact with their fans and just the vibe around it. But 5.5 coming into the conference, you're juiced to the under, but not too crazily. They got to go to Arkansas in the non-con. Their first Big 12 game is at Kansas. I think they win that game. I think they beat Cincinnati. I think obviously they beat Sam Houston State and Southern Utah. So that's 4 wins right there. I'll give them at West Virginia, and I'll give them Iowa State. I'm going to go over.
All right, so I think they only get one road win this year, and that's at West Virginia.
Okay.
So I'm going under there.
Yeah. One thing I'll say about BYU is I never really worry about them like quitting at the end of the season. You know what I mean? Like they tend to kind of like have a bunch of tryhards that like squeak out some wins at the end of the year when other teams maybe have checked out a little bit. Like if that Oklahoma State game at the end of the year, depending on if I think if Gundy doesn't have a good year, he might be out of there finally. And if that's happening, I could see BYU rolling into Stillwater last game of the regular season and just beating the crap out of them because they're disinterested.
Should be noted that they've got Keaton Slovis.
It should be noted.
And they brought in this Aiden Robbins from UNLV, so they're bringing in portal guys at offense, quarterback and running back.
They got some good pieces on defense as well.
Yeah.
Bywater. They got good edge players. I think they'll be all right. I think, again, like, I just don't think playing in the Big 12 in this day and age is that different than playing in the upper half of the Mountain West. It's different, don't get me wrong, but like I don't think there's a huge curve, honestly. It's not as big as Big 12 fans are going to make it out to be in their heads. Cincinnati, the post-Luke Fickell era.
Emory
Jones, you're right.
Quarterback.
Emory Jones
Give me the
season.
under. Give me the under.
Hell yeah, dude. Principal play. I like it. Yep. You know what? That's all we needed to say. Under.
They do that week 2. I mean, I know we keep talking about it, man. They go to Pittsburgh. Yet another great week 2 game.
Week 2 is going to be on fire, dude. I'm so excited for week 2. Iowa State. Look, I'll save everybody the time. We don't know how many dudes they're going to have suspended. Vegas continues to let this win total drop like a rock. It was 5.5 and -150 when you made your guide. Now it is down to 5 and the over is +110. So, yeah, dude, I don't know who's playing for this team. And because of that, I'm going under. That's very simple. There's nothing we can really analyze. We don't know who's playing.
They've got Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, and Iowa all in their first 5 games. So, it could be
get ugly hurt in a hurry.
It could be panic time there, and then they end with TCU and Kansas State. I mean Texas and Kansas State. So yeah, it's bookend of that season it's kind of tough. So I can see a 4-8 out of this team real easily.
For sure. All right, Houston. Our old friend Dana Holgerson, college football's resident prospector. I mean, 4.5, they lose a ton of production, man. They lose a lot on defense. Like, everybody seems to be down on them. There's a lot of uncertainty about the quarterback. I'm going to go against the grain here a little bit. I think nationally the narrative around them is that they're going to flunk out and Holgerson's going to get fired, but I think I think they'll be okay. I don't think they'll be good, but like Cincinnati, UCF, West Virginia, Rice, Sam Houston State, UTSA, those are all winnable games. That's 7 of their games. I think they win. I think they get 5 of them.
Okay. 5 and 7. Nah. I think Rice beats them.
Dunk 'em.
Go JT Daniels.
TD Daniels. How the mighty have fallen. All right.
He's going to get a really good degree. Isn't it?
He is. He's probably got multiple degrees by now, I bet. Dude's going to make a lot of money.
Stetson's got back-to-back natties. JT's got back-to-back degrees. Let's go.
Oh, man. West Virginia, dude. They got C.J. Donaldson, who's a stud running back. A blast to watch. Tall, upright running back that looks more like a receiver. And then they got a couple nice pieces on the O-line, a giant question mark at quarterback, and a lot of attrition, it feels like, on the defense maybe. I don't know. Like your PFF rule on some of these guys being kind of, 60s instead of 50s looks like it applies here with West Virginia. Do you have any read on the Mountaineers?
No, I just think the schedule is kind of tough. I just don't think they have enough offense to sort of to get anything going. They
get Penn State on the road to open,
and then they get Pittsburgh. Yeah. Is that neutral? No, that's at Morgantown, I think.
It's
Texas Tech.
It looks like it's home. Yeah, it's home.
Yeah, that could be a 1-5 start or 1-4. And they're talking about that coach not making it. So yeah, give me the under on that.
Yeah,
just because of that.
I think Neil Brown wants out.
Yeah. I mean, and Oklahoma State and Houston are gonna especially if you look at Houston, that's they're going to be competing in a new league. They've got games circled. That's a home game for Houston, so they want to beat some of these Big 12 teams. So yeah, I like Houston in that game. UCF, same thing. UCF, that's a home game for UCF. So yeah, I mean this could be a 2-10 team easily.
For sure. All right. Well, that is that. That is the entire Big 12. We got through this in an hour 20. It's pretty solid. Josh,
14 teams.
Yeah, 14 teams is a lot. It's going to be more next year. Thank you for your time. I want to plug, I see that there are still some of you that are watching this live. Thank you guys for rolling through this whole thing with us.
For real.
I definitely want to plug your guide. If you're watching this, you're clearly a diehard. And if you're a diehard, then Josh's guide is it's the red meat that you want. Yeah. I can promise you that.
Yeah, and I don't know how many more updates I'll do. I may do one more, but I've added sort of some national stuff in the last week. So if you've already purchased it, you should have gotten an email about an update on it. If you haven't, it'll obviously be included. Yeah, dogstats.com. Grab it. It's up to 370 pages. Kind of talked about sort of and track some of the I track some of the sort of the resumes for the teams that we expect to be competing, like 20 teams or so, what they've done the last 3 years and some of these stats we looked at. So that was a fun addition, little update I did. So please check it out. That's also on the blog at dogcentral.com. You'll see all these graphs. Even if you haven't got the guide, you just want to check it out. You'll see these graphs, a lot of them, and some of the new stuff in the Big 12 preview I did on the Dog Central blog page.
All right.
Thank you for the plug. Thank you guys for sticking around. Even Harry had to bail.
I know. Harry, WTF, bro. We will be back to do what do we do next? The ACC or the Big Ten? We'll get the ACC out of the way before we go to the Big Ten. If that's all right with you, Josh.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah.
All right. So we'll hit the ACC. in the Big Ten in coming weeks. I think we'll probably have to split up our SEC preview because we'll want to do a little more deep dive there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to going through the rest of these with you. Tons of great insight that you've brought as always, and excited to be back doing shows with you, man. We're getting into 2023 and got a lot of ball ahead of us to talk about. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Graham.
Absolutely.